Welcome to the second episode of the Corona Resource Team, The Real Deal. Today we got a great, we'll call it show, I guess, lined up for everyone out there who's going to be listening either on a podcast or watching this on our YouTube channel. So let's say a hello to everyone who is in our core panel, and in no particular order because the way I'm seeing this, I'm going to go right and down. So I'll start with Bobby Levin, world famous public adjuster that has helped people with billions and billions of dollars in claims over his career. Bobby, hanging in there okay?
Hey, I'm looking for the real deal.
Well, you're going to find the real deal today.
Right here.
Right. Well, right here under you, the way you're pointing, sort of the Hollywood Squares concept, the real deal, one of the real deals is right underneath you. Stuart Gold, incredible bankruptcy attorney, local bankruptcy trustee as well, been in the bankruptcy world as a lawyer for many, many years, settled millions and millions, I don't know if it's billions for you too of debt, but it's probably a huge number. We got guys that have billions to their name. So, Stuart Gold, you doing good?
Hanging in there. It's a beautiful day here.
Absolutely. And by the way, it is Sunday, so we're trying to explain what time we're going to be doing this. It's Sunday, late in the day, about 5:45, and then by the time this actually goes up on our YouTube site, so the last one that we had, which we'll call episode 1, was actually on the famous April 15th day. And moving on over, at least under me, the square, is going to be Dr. Justin Trivax in the house. There you go, right? I'm pointing down to him like the old Hollywood Squares. Justin, you doing good? You're at the hospital. We talked earlier today, doing your rounds?
Did rounds today, taking care of the patients. It's looking better over at Beaumont, I'll tell you that much right now.
Good to hear.
Looking better.
That's great to hear. And for those of you who didn't know, although it's all over social media, Justin, the world famous interventional cardiologist. He's just not a cardiologist. He gets pissed off if I don't say interventional. So he's an interventional cardiologist. He actually had the coronavirus, but he's okay. We'll get back to that later on. And then rounding out our core group, we have down to Justin, if you will. I need one of those down motions from Justin. I don't know how it's going to look up, but there you go. We have in the top right out of that left corner, we got, and he looks, if you look at his arms, we may have to see Justin's biceps again, right?
Justin's got bigger biceps for sure, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we got another famous, actually was in the top 100 in the country for IT guys, Kevin Adelson in the house from MobileIt.
Thank you.
And as you can tell, I stepped my game up a little bit today. I got these. My kids got those ear pods. I can't even say what the right word is. Ear pad, iPod. I never know what it is.
AirPod, yeah.
Yeah, AirPod. Right. I never get it right. And I see, Kevin, you got that fancy mic thing going on there.
Yeah, that helped my game a little bit. My son said the audio wasn't that great, so you can use mine, Dad. And I said, okay. Well,
right.
anything to give me the edge against these guys. We got a tough crew here.
Right, exactly. All the guys on this one, we all get the hand-me-downs. Let's say hello. We have a really great episode lined up today. We have two really cool guys that I've had the pleasure of getting to know over, especially the recent few years with one of the gentlemen, and unfortunately or fortunately, this other guy got thrown into a major role. Let's say a hello to the Chief of Police is with us. He's wearing, that is a real police hat, not one that he went out and bought at the dollar store. Chief of Police Scott McKee is in the house. Chief, how are you?
Doing well. I appreciate you guys letting me come on and say a few words on your podcast here.
Well, absolutely, and we want to hear what the real deal is from law enforcement, what's really going on there. And last but not least, we have a guy who got thrown into his new role as president of a major association, Bob Doyle, to not be confused with Bobby. Bob Doyle, president of the Michigan Association of CPAs. Bob, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for inviting me to be on The Real Deal. I see that the Old English D seems to be the most common hat of the group here. I got the special Carhartt version today I decided to go with.
I got to get one, I know.
Yeah. I feel like I want one of those police hats. That's what I want. I want a police hat. But let's get right into it. For right now, we want to really hear what the real deal is for law enforcement. We're going to start out with that. And Scott, you've been in law enforcement for about 25 years?
That's correct. So 25 years. Just had my 24th anniversary with the city of Lathrup Village, and prior to that, I was with the city of Detroit for a little over a year.
Wow, that's great. Well, thank you for your service. Thanks for keeping us safe, and thanks for all that you do to keep the world safe. And we'd like to give a big shout out to those in law enforcement, certainly, and to you as the chief. Really, really much appreciated for keeping us safe. And I think everyone's going to echo those comments. Lately, the police have not had the greatest news coverage, but on the CRT, the real deal, we're going to say a big thank you to law enforcement. So we appreciate that.
For sure.
Thank you.
We are not here to talk about politics. We may have a politician on, but we're not here to talk about politics. But we're going to talk to this top cop as the real deal. And I will tell you what's pretty crazy, Scott, when you and I were talking, and I was telling you about Bob Doyle, the Michigan Association of CPAs, how'd you respond back to me with that one?
I said it was pretty funny to hear that company's name because going through college, I actually worked for the association in the mailroom.
Wow.
All the flyers and putting together all the labels and everything to mail out all your correspondence throughout the year.
Well, you've come a long way.
For sure.
I'll have to get with you afterwards and learn more, because as Lawrence was kind of alluding to, this is basically my third week on the job, so I could probably learn from you, Scott.
It's been a number of years, but I'd love to chat with you.
For sure.
All right, so let's jump right into it. From a police officer, actually we have the chief of police to be specific, so we appreciate your time taken out of your day and your busy schedule, and you'll tell us about how many phone calls you have and emergency response team meetings you have. But I want to toss this out to Justin for a second, and we'll start off with sort of a medical question. And since he's the doctor in the house, I'm going to toss it over to Justin to fire away some questions for you, Chief.
Chief, I just want to say thank you again. People are giving the healthcare providers a lot of good press, and people are sometimes unknowing that how do those patients get to us? It's first responders. It's all day long. So I just want to say thank you. You guys are doing a phenomenal job. And, something that's really interesting, and I know it's probably the way that I contracted the virus, is that we've seen a lot of news coverage, as you know, about personal protective equipment and the PPEs, and initially the lack thereof when this was really exploding in Oakland and Wayne County. We were concerned we wouldn't have enough masks and gowns and all that stuff. We haven't heard much from first responders asking for anything. As the chief of the department, what is the morale, what's the health of your department, and what's going on with PPE for you guys?
Yeah, so the health of the department, we've been very fortunate. We've had no one seriously ill or anyone test positive for COVID. We've had a couple guys that were, under the weather for a few days, but a couple days of self-quarantine, and, they were right back in the mix. As far as the PPE gear, right now we're doing well. We are constantly trying to, get more masks, more gloves, more sanitary wipes, hand sanitizers. We're at a decent level right now, but we're constantly putting in requests through Oakland County's emergency management. We're always looking for donations. We've been fortunate enough to have a couple businesses donate masks and gloves. So right now we're holding our own.
Every patient any call you guys go out to, are you just assuming that they have COVID until proven otherwise? I would imagine that's what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely stepping up our game, screening the calls. The dispatch is doing a great job, asking additional questions. And then when the officers get on the scene, obviously they're trying to keep a distance and make a number of inquiries into what's going on prior to why we were called there, just for their own safety. And then again, we, if there's any doubt, we mask up, we glove up, and we try to do the best job we can.
Yeah, so we've heard a lot about antibody testing. So it's a little bit confusing for me to understand where we're going with this. Antibody testing would be great for healthcare providers and first responders. I mean, your whole department should get it so then they don't have to be worried about, their exposure and whatever else. But it bothers me a little bit, and it makes me curious to know how the rest of the world is going to take that data. And, we're not going to screen hundreds of millions of people with antibodies. But for the first responders, it's going to be imperative. And have you been notified by hospitals or departments about getting antibody testing yet?
No, I have not heard a thing yet.
That's a shame. And then, from a physician's perspective, and I'm going to kind of punt this over to our IT guy, but there's been a lot of shifting to do more what we call telemedicine, right? So we're taking a lot of phone calls, we're doing a lot of different modalities to do that, whether it's FaceTime or Google Duo or our own electronic medical records. And just thinking about, is there a way to do that from a not an IT security perspective, but even from a perspective of making sure people are safe? Have you guys kind of transitioned to do less officers on the scene and doing more phone calls or even FaceTiming? Or have you seen any switch into that realm? Or
absolutely, we've tried to take non-emergency phone calls. If we can take a report over the phone now, we're trying to do that. If we're if we would normally take a written statement at the scene, we're asking that they either email them in or fax them into the department, so that way we're not touching the paper, same papers, and definitely trying to do a switch to, have less FaceTime with the residents in a situation where we don't know what's going on. So, we still want to give the service that we always do, but again, we also want to keep our guys as safe and healthy as we possibly can. So, definitely taking a look at doing more things that are not face to face.
Yeah. And Kevin, do you have any thoughts about the security of that from an IT perspective, or?
I think anytime you do telemed or anything in the detective side of investigations and the police force, you certainly have to look at security, and there's certain things and software and cloud services that come into play that they can use to make sure those types of things are controlled properly, and you can get those now. As I mentioned in the previous podcast, there's a service called CASB, which pretty much blankets your entire coverage for your entire for you it'd be your entire force. So whether they call from their phone, whether they call from their home computer, their laptop, their Mac, everything's covered and secured through one portal. So there's no software; it all goes through like a sanitation type funnel, digital funnel. So that's where I think you'll see a lot of things going once you figure out, because I don't know if law enforcement has really adapted the chief, you'd be able to respond on this, like Justin, like telemed. I mean, that's gone pretty hard pretty quickly, as well as the law field. Is there an application, chief, that you're using, or besides the the normal ones that are out right now, Zoom, Skype, Google?
Yeah, I mean, so all of our meetings now are either on Skype or Zoom.
Okay.
We do have the ability to do video conferences with the court, so we don't have to transfer people back and forth. We can do it right from the Oakland County Sheriff's Department, from the jail, or we can do it from. We house our prisoners at Berkeley PD. So we can actually video conference and again keep the face to face to a minimum.
Nice. So Bob, hello over there. Now you're on my bottom right corner, so we'll have to adjust the squares, Lawrence. So in my experience so far with everybody remote, I've dealt with quite a few CPA firms that are almost completely virtual now, aside from a few people at the office. I know Lawrence has a mixture of CPA as well as tax specialists and attorneys, and there's quite a bit remote. And so it's something that we deal with every day. And I'm wondering, in your field, is this a topic that you find comes up with security, and is that a big focus for your association?
Yeah, actually, cybersecurity is one of the offerings of the training that we offer for CPAs. In order to maintain their license, they need to get 40 hours of education each year, and cybersecurity is one of them. We've seen that many of our firms have certainly embraced technology. Both being able to work with their clients in utilizing different tools, different technology tools, which made it easier for them to quickly and relatively easily transfer to a virtual environment as we deal with this crisis. But at the same time, there's still some firms or really clients who it's that kind of standard. I have clients, they still come with a shoebox full of receipts, and I need to hand them to my CPA. So, how our members are dealing with them is certainly unique. That was one of the things that in the advocacy role that we play as an association with the state, we did argue that CPAs were an essential, business.
Yeah.
And in most respects, they have that opportunity. I mean, certainly anyone who is working, that's not working remotely, they have to make sure they're following, health and safety guidelines that are accepted now. And in most cases, we're hearing our members are working virtually. And that was another part of our advocacy efforts that we were able to do also, was obviously extend the tax deadline. Federal went first, and then the state extended it to July 15th as well. So that helped in some of those, especially more elderly citizens that are used to just handing the shoebox full of receipts to their CPA. But it is definitely a concern when it comes to, keeping that virtual environment and utilizing those technology tools.
We've implemented some things for the elderly, which is, we have a scanning service where we can, come, they can leave us the receipts. We can scan everything digitally and then send them in on their behalf. And I think you're going to start seeing a lot of that in the future. But some things to help, because you're right, a lot of the elderly don't, especially for telemed. I mean, it's, trying to get the elderly to, click on a Zoom or anything. It's very difficult. So no, that's interesting. And another question real quick is, are there certain standards that CPAs have to follow for security that are more prevalent now that you're seeing, or questions being asked about?
I'm not sure if there's specifically for CPAs, but typically, it's like the highest, similar to like banking standards as far as when it comes to making sure that that their customers' data isn't easily accessed and all that. Because the worst thing you can have is have someone jump into your server and get your client's data. So in that respect, it's just trying to protect it as utilizing the latest technologies.
Okay, thank you. And Chief, I wanted to thank you too, because I went from asking you a few questions, so I appreciate your time as well, and thanks for joining us. And Stuart, how are you?
I'm doing great in the neighborhood here. So Chief, I want to thank you as well for being here with us this afternoon and providing us with your insight. My office isn't too far from Lathrup Village. I know it's closed. And my question to you is, the reports are that crime has been dropping quite a bit across the country as we shelter in place. Are you noticing the same in Lathrup Village at this time?
I am. It's surprising. I was a little concerned when we went into this kind of quarantine and stay home, stay safe. I was a little worried about the possibility of domestics and domestic violence increasing. And and lo and behold, it hasn't, at least at this point, has not.
That's good.
Has not happened. It's been the crime is down. People are staying home, and so far so good.
Are the patrols different? Are you checking in the vacant businesses and the retail establishments that are all closed? And specifically with the assisted living issues and the senior citizen homes, are those being reviewed more carefully than in the past?
Absolutely. We in Lathrup Village, we don't have an assisted living facility, but I do understand other communities are, obviously focusing on those areas. We've really stepped up our patrol in the business district along Southfield Road. We've got a number of businesses that are closed down, and we want to make sure that that their property is protected. And we've really stepped up patrols, especially in the evening time.
That's great. That's great. Good to hear. I know there's some landlord issues there, Bobby. What do you think? What's going on with the landlords? How are they getting their rents these days?
Well, I guess that's a question for Bob. We all know that the tenants have been given a lot of leeway, which is good for them. That they don't have to pay rent. That I believe there's some kind of limitations on evictions. So, Bob, how do real estate owners or property owners, how do they book that with their financial records when they're getting, let's see, PPP funds? They have significant losses. How do they do that in order not to have a significant hole or loss that might then have to be picked up? What are you recommending to CPAs and to their clients?
Yeah, for sure. So I watched your Real Deal video from last week when you had Mr. Kopelman on talking a lot about the Paycheck Protection Program. It's funny how it's changed even since then, right? So it's the $350 billion is now gone, and
I was told in 5 minutes it was gone. Literally.
It was more like 9 days, I think, but it took that long, I guess, to process them.
Right.
I was looking at some statistics, some good news. Speaking of at least talking about Michigan, there was almost 25,000 loans that were distributed or in the process of being distributed to the tune of $7.3 billion in Michigan, which was the 9th largest when it comes to all the states. So I think that's a good news story that I think Michigan and small businesses and the banks, because I know there's a lot of discussion about banks having trouble executing the loans. So I think that's a positive thing that money is starting to flow, if not already flowing into the accounts of these small businesses. And then hopefully we can get into the discussion on if that's going to be, if more money is going to go into it or not. But as far as tracking it, hopefully some of these, the landlords and property owners have been able to receive some of those funds. I was looking at one of our accounting firms, Clayton and McKee, that's based here based in Southfield. I was looking at I'm looking at my other screen to make sure I'm articulating it appropriately. But there is a link to the SBA website that does give guidance and loan resources, and people can find that right on the Small Business Administration website. But a couple of things they said is maintaining of good records is so important. They in fact said you should utilize a separate bank account to receive and disperse funds. Utilize a tool, whether it's Excel even or some, just to make sure you track the payments, and then also tracking employee hours. This is not only in the application when they're determining the amount that you could get, but also in moving forward. And then be ready to supply the support, because of course all small business they want to get they want to turn it into a grant and not just a loan. Yeah. Even if it was a loan, it's a very low interest loan. But looking at those employee hours, computing the full-time equivalents, and then the disbursements. So basically it's just make sure you track it as much as possible so that you can turn that loan into a grant and you don't have to pay it back.
Yeah, Bob, did they say, if I may, Bob, I'm sorry, Bobby, did you want to, I can ask the question later.
Well, I just wanted to follow up. My question really was, and I understand the SBA issues, but I'm more concerned so that everybody out there that's listening to us has an idea. So there are going to be significant losses to any, whether it's a landlord, whether it's a tenant, a business owner, they're going to have significant losses. And they're going to have a tax-free loan, assuming that they meet all the criteria.
Mm-hmm.
So from the accounting standpoint, and maybe it's just maybe it's the government hasn't come out with it yet, but how would that be treated since it's not taxable, but it still is income? It seems to me that you've got businesses that are getting money, creating losses. Is there an offset? Do you have any idea if there's offsets?
I'm not sure yet. There's so much new news flying in on a daily basis. We're the state association for Michigan, and then the AICPA, the American Institute of CPAs, based in Washington, D.C. I'm getting information from them on a daily basis as they're advocating also with Treasury, with the Small Business Administration, just trying to figure it all out and to give good guidance, because there's been and actually our CPAs, our members have been really frustrated with, and like you guys talked about in last week's video was, the amount of money flowing through the SBA and Treasury is nothing they've ever seen before. So there was going to be hiccups. There was going to be issues. There was going to be questions. People just need to accept that. So it'll be interesting to see as more guidance comes out of how to track this, how to measure it, and then, what's it going to look like on these business tax returns next year.
Right.
I'm just I'll try and answer part of your question as best as I can, and from there we're going to toss it back to Justin. But the Payroll Protection Program was intended to protect the employee's payroll, not really much for the employer, because what if some businesses don't have employees that can work, the dentists of the world, the restaurants out there. But to your question for the landlords, let's say that, Bobby, you and I owned L&L for Levy and Levin investments, and we own a strip center, and we have 10 tenants.
Levy?
What's that?
Levy and Levy? Levin and Levy?
Right, L&L investments, something like that. So let's assume that's the case. There is actually...
Yep, you froze on us.
We got a little freeze.
Well, this is at least realistic. What
Estimate,
happens
you
with
and I?
Zoom. But Lawrence, about 30 seconds you cut out. Maybe less, maybe 20.
Lawrence, just ask your question again. We'll cut it.
Yeah, we'll edit over it. Don't worry.
Okay. So what I was trying to explain back there was that there's a lot of changes that are still going to be coming. If you and I owned Levy and Levin investments and we own the strip center, there may not be an opportunity for us to get that PPP because we don't have employees. So to that point, a lot of the landlords that are out there, whether it's they own apartment buildings or they own strip centers, Bob nor anyone has those answers yet because there's still no guidance. We don't know if another round of stimulus money, if there's going to be some new guidance that's issued there. Justin, back to you. Go ahead with another medical twist to this.
Let me hit this. This is going to be one that's going to maybe be personal to some, but we'll not make it political if that's okay. So back to the chief. Gosh, I'd love to be called chief of something someday. But that takes
Chief of cardiac surgery.
There you go.
Well, I'd rather just be chief of my house, but that's a whole other story. So
You got to start there.
yeah, so I'm really still trying to understand what the public and the first responders and everyone's thinking about this still from a health perspective. I only know one thing in the world, and that's medicine essentially. But the governor puts out some very, very aggressive recommendations, so to speak. And I was just on the City of Lathrup Village website, just kind of going through and what kind of conveying to the rest of the citizens. And there still is an order, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it states that all public and private gatherings among persons outside a single household remain temporarily prohibited, and violators are subject to a $1,000 fine. So
That's correct, yeah.
You know, I was just on a walk with my wife and my daughter, and my neighbor said that the police came by. We live in the city of Birmingham, and told them all they had to get away. They were all on walks. They had their dogs with them, and they were all around 10 feet away from each other, and said, if you don't go and disperse, then we're going to write you a ticket. Now, you know, the governor says we can exercise outdoors, and by the way, as a cardiologist, I encourage that. But we can't have someone come out to our house and do landscaping or home improvements. We can buy alcohol from the store, but we can't buy paint.
And lottery tickets.
But we can't buy grass seed. I mean, you can kayak or canoe, but you can't fish on a motorboat. Tell me how difficult it is for you guys to enforce these rules. Are you enforcing it in your city? And I mean, isn't it time for some real deal common sense revisions, or how are your officers dealing with that?
Yeah, I think you kind of said it. I mean, we are applying common sense to every situation, and we have to look at each situation, you know, on its own merit and figure out where we go from there. You know, a couple people walking down the street on a you know, exercise on a walk or walking their dog, I can't imagine stopping them and telling them to disperse. Now, again, you know, we had Easter just recently, and you know, obviously we had a couple phone calls about a number of you know, families being together and barbecues, and you know, we had to, you know, say, hey, you know, this is a violation. We didn't issue any tickets. We didn't make any arrests. We didn't do anything like that. You know, we're trying to take an approach where of just common sense and advise them of what the actual order is. You know, you bring up kayaking. You know, kayaking is great. You're on your own. You're exercising, but you can't drive a motorboat or a speedboat or a pontoon boat. And again, I think it was her order is basically trying to look at the big picture. And if you got a pontoon boat, you're probably going to have more people than just one or two on it. So, unfortunately, it's the order. It's what we've been dealt, and we're trying to, you know, go with it. You know, putting it into the common sense mode and trying to deal with what the order is.
Yeah. Lawrence, what do you think?
Well, you know,
you live on an area where you can get on a boat soon?
Yeah, you know, I got to tell you, you know, I enjoy the water, and I was talking to Scott earlier today, and Justin, you too, and a lot of the news this past weekend where you had some Michigan law enforcement that made national news, and they were talking about, you know, are they enforcing it? Can they enforce it? Are there going to be tickets issued? The sheriff in particular, through the grapevine, I think, Scott, you said you knew through a friend of a friend of a friend, one of those sheriffs. But I was talking this morning to a police sergeant in Florida, and it was Sunday morning about 9:30, talking to him, and just basically saying that his golf outing for his pals' police athletic league, they had to get canceled because he didn't feel it right to go and ask businesses to contribute during these hard times, let alone who knows if golf's going to come back. But he was saying in Florida, in particular, because they deal with hurricanes a lot, and they're out of power a lot, they have to get supplies a lot. He was saying that it's really not as alarming to a lot of people, because this is the first time in my lifetime. I know you and I are both Virgos, Chief, and we got a number coming up this year for us to celebrate. But in our lifetime, we've never had the government tell us to not go out. I may have had my wife tell me you can't go out. I have had my wife tell me I can't go on a canoe. I've had my wife tell me that I can't go out to the store and buy a particular item. I've never had the government telling me that I can't go out. In fact, I had to take batteries to my 80-year-old mother-in-law because her remote control didn't work. And I was worried. So I put the batteries in a Ziploc bag and take it over there. We've not seen this. I know you're taking it, the real deal is that you're taking a more common sense approach, correct?
Definitely taking a common sense approach to every situation. And again, trying to look at the totality, trying to look at the bigger picture and just trying to make a common sense decision for everybody.
Yeah, I just want to bring about one more topic before we toss it back to Kevin. And if anyone's listening out there, besides the fact that we're trying to use the words like toss it back to you in the studio, right? We're trying to listen to what we see on the news to make it flow a little bit more better, depending upon how it's going to go. But in general, it's great to hear that crime isn't up. You're not having people that are trying to steal other people's toilet paper like everyone thought was going to happen in the beginning. You're not having people come out and bum rush your house because they think you have food there. You're not seeing that crime uptick. You're not seeing anything with an uptick in domestic, which, listen, we all love our wives. I can at least speak for all of us on this because I know everyone's wife, except for actually I don't know Bob Doyle's wife, but everyone else's I've met your wives or know of your wives or your significant others. But it's actually refreshing to hear from the police. You've said nothing negative. In the first 45 minutes or so of this, you've said not one negative piece about your job in law enforcement. You're certainly out there. When you and I were talking earlier, you mentioned that on a medical call, you would usually enter the home. Now you're staging outside. Can you talk about the staging real quick before we pass it to Kevin?
Yeah, definitely. Normally in our community, our police officers respond to every medical run. They go in the house. A lot of times we're there first because, we're in the city versus we contract out with the city of Southfield for fire and medical services. So they might be on another run. They're actually just outside our city borders. So we usually get there quick. And with the change of the circumstances with the pandemic, we've made the decision that if it's not a life-threatening event, that we are now going to stage outside the house and wait for the paramedics to go in, assess the situation, and we're there if they need us. But we're not going in unless they request us to do that right now. Well,
that's great. You're staying safe and doing what you can. And again, I think that Justin made a good point earlier that, a lot of thanks are not getting out, maybe in my opinion, as much into the right places as they should be. Whether it was thank you to the banks for doing the best you could do, I will almost guarantee you there's going to be another round of money. Thanks to those first responders, law enforcement out there for keeping us safe. And take a look at Bob Doyle. Bob, you have how many, before we pass it down to Kevin, how many members in Michigan do you have of the Michigan Association of CPAs?
19,000.
Wow.
That's a big number.
Yeah.
And
it includes students, but yeah, it's a if you think about all the CPAs in Michigan that are doing what they can to support businesses throughout the state, it's it's an important group of people.
No, it certainly is. And also the CPAs, the accounting firms out there, they've been a real go-to needed resource because the bankers are saying, hey, go talk to your accountant how to calculate for these payroll protection programs. Ask your accountant about the other options that are out there for loans or grants out there. So CPAs, and I'll tell you, you would never expected this when you took over as president, right, Bob?
No, it's been interesting. And it actually, I like this quote I've used that I think Winston Churchill first said. It was never let a good crisis go to waste. And that's what we've been doing as an association. And we partnered with the Small Business Administration of Michigan to launch a website. It's Paycheck Protection Program, Michigan.com. It's kind of long, but to help small businesses get the information, go to the website, learn more. And then also what we did was we created a Q&A, but if small businesses had more questions, they could reach out to us. And we had a bunch of volunteers who are answering these questions for small businesses. Over 160 unique questions we've received that our volunteers are answering, just really out of the goodness of their own heart, just to help them, because knowing that these small businesses are so important to the state.
Well, that's great. Kevin, back to you. I know you briefly talked a little bit about the Zoom platforms, but what does the chief have to say about it? I mean, how does he meet with the council? You know, I don't think you can, you think I even have the need to arrest someone, but can you call someone and say, please put FaceTime, I'm going to send you handcuffs, arrest yourself. It doesn't work like that. And thank God you don't need that. But Kevin, what are your thoughts?
Well, I'd have to, the virtual handcuffs. I mean, yeah, I don't know about that, but I would like, Chief, I would like to know the real deal on how you're handling, city business, council meetings. Are you using the same way, the Zoom and the Skype, and as far as all the platforms go?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I have a city council meeting tomorrow. We're doing all of our budget meetings through Skype. It's Skype and email, and the platform is open for the residents. We can actually send a link out so they can still watch the council meetings and actually participate if they've got a question. So it's actually we've transitioned to doing it a different way, and actually I kind of like it a lot better.
Awesome. And I have a couple more questions. One, you look pretty fit, and Justin and I, we're kind of like hardcore workout guys, and we're talking, and what do you do to keep your head on straight and your all your nerves at bay? And some people meditate. I work out. Justin works out. Lauren. It looks like everybody in our group works out. Everybody looks fit. But what do you do to as far as exercise?
Well, I love to exercise, but right now I'm chock full of honeydew lists. So
that's your exercise.
Really impressed with painting. Right now I'm actually doing a tile floor in my laundry room, so I've got a number of projects that I'm actually trying to catch up on. I've coached sports for the last 25 years. I've coached my son's football and baseball team. I've coached my daughter. So just try to stay active. I do a little bit of biking, a little hiking. I do a little weights, but it's kind of a little bit of everything. It just depends on what time of year it is. I'm a big hunter, so I like to get out and walk and bird hunt and deer hunt. So try to stay as active as I can. I don't have like a set regiment right now.
Bet you don't.
Out trying to do as much as I can.
You're not biking.
You look great, man. When did you join the force? When you were 16, 15?
Thanks.
Yeah. No. Thanks for joining us, and I appreciate that. Bobby.
Yeah.
Over to you.
I'm up here.
Oh. Okay. I don't know.
Hey, Chief, I didn't get a chance to talk to you. So let me ask. Everybody's asking questions about what's going on right now and what has gone on. I want to look a little bit forward. So whether the stay-at-home order is over with in some fashion on May 1st or sometime thereafter, it's eventually going to be over with. What are you seeing as your big concerns? Now, you indicated that crime is down, which is great. Businesses are closed. People are off the streets. It's a little more obvious when no one's supposed to be on the streets and you've got people walking around.
Right.
Once there's people on the streets and there's businesses that are going to be open, do you have certain concerns that, okay, now we have to prepare for this change of the environment? And if you do you have protocols that are already in place? And I presume that you're not just working on your own, or maybe you'll tell us that you are. I assume that there's information that goes around that provides some direction. Is there a lot of that?
Yeah, right now there is. I mean, obviously we're getting a lot of information from the CDC.
Yeah.
But I'm also the emergency manager for the city of Lathrup Village. I'm on conference calls multiple times a week with Oakland County's emergency management team, Homeland Security, fire chiefs and police chiefs across Oakland County, just trying to exchange as much information as possible and prepare our people as best as we can.
Yeah. And so from a a looting standpoint, which I would think would be a significant concern, do you have any protocols that are in place? I mean, can the departments handle a lot of calls that right now are different?
Yeah, so we've got a number of protocols in place. You know, we were looking at you know, the issues that if we, you know, were sustained a number of people were diagnosed with COVID, how are we going to handle that? We're able to draft mutual aid agreements across Oakland County. So we would go to our nearest cities, which would be Southfield and Berkeley, and then if they couldn't handle it, then we'd go out to Oakland County, and then Oakland County would then call in the state police. So we've got mutual aid agreements across the county to make sure that we can handle this, you know, for every police and fire department out there.
Right. I would imagine, and I don't know if it's really in order or whether it's just discussion, but I've heard that businesses, especially when they open, if a customer comes in without wearing a mask, that they are going to have the right to ask that customer to leave the premises. Is that true?
That's my understanding. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be personal preference for that business owner and what, you know, regulations or stipulations they want to put on their customers. Mm-hmm. I mean, right now, Home Depot, you can't walk into Home Depot unless you're wearing a mask. Yeah, and that's what their company protocol is, and that's their right to do that.
When was that? When was the Home Depot mask thing?
It started today.
Okay. All right. Because I was just there last week. I had a mask, but there were people who didn't. And I was like, wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it started today.
Good to know.
So if people, I mean, I would imagine that there's going to be some disturbance that's going on. If they call you, if they now call the police because somebody won't leave their premises, is that going to be something that the police are going to be involved in?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that falls in our realm, and, you know, we will try to, you know, handle it as politely and kindly as we possibly can. And hopefully we can adjudicate or mediate any issues that are there. But, you know, if they refuse to leave at a certain point, then we will have to take law enforcement action.
Yeah, yeah. So the volume's going to kick up a lot.
Yeah, potentially, yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Hey, Bob, one question for you. My understanding is that this SBA loan, after so many days or so many weeks, it goes to, if you comply with everything, it's then converted from a loan to nothing. It's just
Right.
Right.
Free money.
Yeah, free money. I presume some government verification that you really did spend the money for the same reasons that you requested. Government's in. Do you know what the time frame of that's going to be and who's going to be enforcing that?
Man, you're stumping me with these questions. So again, some of that is still a little unknown. I mean, the banks that are dispersing the funds, there is going to be some sort of you know, kind of a check back that's going to be required, and that was one of the reasons why I talked earlier that they're going to be asking for those, you know, that spreadsheet, if you will, to show that it did indeed go, you know, to maintain, you know, employment, to maintain that, you know, they didn't lay off the people and just keep the money and put it in their pocket. But I think, you know, they try to make it as simple as possible. I mean, one of our accountants, members, he created a spreadsheet to help not only do the calculation, but then also the tracking behind it. So I think as long as small businesses that receive the funds, as long as they're smart about it, they're keeping track of the information, it shouldn't be too difficult to, you know, maintain that information, be able to report it, and then receive it as a grant instead of a loan. But at the same time, you always have to. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to just explain I'm going to answer your question, Bobby, a little bit, not Bob, but Bob Doyle. From what we gather, the banks in which you got the loan from they're going to be the ones that you have to show the proof to. Is it going to be an actual canceled check? Is it going to be bank statements? They're going to show debits. Is it going to be that coupled with a separate ledger and Excel spreadsheet? We actually created both to help for the loan application process, as well as how you're going to track how you spend the money on what today is a 60-day window from the time that those funds get given to you, right? So there's certain guidelines in there. And what if you don't? Let's talk about that for a second. What if you don't spend that money on eligible expenses? It just doesn't convert to a grant, and it remains then as a loan. There's going to be some scrutiny to help answer the question you asked, Bob. Who's going to be the watchdog of that? We don't know. Is it the SBA? Is it the IRS? Is it the Inspector General? Is it right? Is it my wife? I mean, who's going to check? She's going to check and see what I spend.
She'd be good at it.
Right, she would be. She's a great one at that. But again, we just don't know. Stuart, I just want to get back to you for a quick second on to Bobby Levin has always he asked those good questions. You know, what's it going to look like when we get out of this? Because it seems to me, as the chief has talked about, we've all talked about, Justin talked about it too, that lately, the past few days, it seems that the tide appears to be shifting. So now, if you're talking to that average John Doe or Jane Doe out there, and they're worried about their bills, they've racked up 3 or 4 months worth of car payments, they're behind on their mortgage, they're behind on their rent, they're behind on their credit card bills, they're worried about utilities. You're known as the bankruptcy king in Detroit. Kevin's the bankruptcy. Kevin is the IT king. Justin's the badass doctor. Bobby's the badass adjuster. We got the finest chief of police in all the land, and Bob Doyle, who walked into this position. But you as the king of the bankruptcy court, as you're known, what are you telling the average person out there? What should you be doing right now? And maybe if you come out of this in a month or two, then what do you recommend to people? Should we all be calling gold-legged Majoros and file bankruptcy, or is there a better shot?
Well, the word on the street is we're going to be very busy the second half of this year. The stimulus money is keeping people afloat. The PPP is keeping some of the businesses afloat. But once that's spent, we're afraid that there's still going to be a shortage coming through to pay the mortgage, pay the utilities, pay the credit cards, and what have you. And we're afraid that we're going to see a lot of people have to take the bankruptcy option. We're recommending at this point to talk to your landlords, talk to your mortgage companies, talk to your credit cards, and do what you can to avoid having to file a bankruptcy, and trying to communicate what your situation is and to use these funds that are coming in. But at some point, we're afraid that that's just going to run out. We're seeing it now in some of the department stores. We're seeing retail businesses now starting to consider filing bankruptcy. Some major ones are on the news recently, maybe filing this week. So we're afraid that we're going to see a lot more of that coming down the second half of this year, and we're doing our best to gear up for that, quite honestly. I have to say a couple of things. One of the things that you mentioned, I'm a bankruptcy trustee. We've gotten word out of Washington. One of the things that I do as a bankruptcy trustee is I pursue assets for the benefit of creditors. So when an individual files and I get assigned their case, my job is to determine if there's any assets that can be used to pay back their debts. One of the things that they're going to have coming up are these stimulus payments that are coming in. They clearly need them to survive. And we've gotten word out of Washington to try and minimize our pursuit of those stimulus payments. So cool. Washington's doing what they can to guide the bankruptcy process to be a little bit more gentler, a little bit more kinder in these very, very difficult situations. They also came through, the CARES Act actually dealt with a part of bankruptcy called the Chapter 13, which is where individuals repay their debts. And there's a formula that Chapter 13 uses to determine the amount to be paid back. And they've excluded these stimulus payments from that formula. So that's already baked into the bankruptcy code as we move forward in dealing with these issues. What I don't understand at the moment, and I'll throw it back to Bob and to you, Lawrence, is there any tax implications? Normally when a debt is forgiven, there's a cancellation of indebtedness, a 1099-C is sent out, and there's an obligation to pay on that forgiveness of debt. So the question I have is this a forgiveness of debt when it moves into a grant? And is there a tax implication for the business? And same, to follow up with that, same with the stimulus checks. Is that going to be put into the income of the individuals that receive these payments? Do we have any answers on that yet?
The stimulus checks, when we first heard about them, it sounded like you were going to be, it was going to be on your taxes next year. Then all of a sudden now they're saying no. It's like, again, the word I used before, free money. So now it's like, oh, okay. So I guess it isn't almost like an advance on next year's tax refund, at least, personally. I don't know, Lawrence, is that the late? I heard different things. Is that the latest?
As far as I know, that's the latest, although we did hear that your 2020 tax returns where you would in essence reconcile that stimulus. To get back to your other question though, and again, you're right, Bob, it's all gray and fuzzy and the rules keep changing, but you're right. Usually when you get that loan and you get that cancellation of debt, whether it's a credit card charge off or you make a deal, that becomes a taxable event. From the guidance that we've seen, the conversion from the loan to a grant is a non-taxable event. So that is everything we've seen, everything we've read. We've heard of clients and talked to people that have got, small ones, $25,000, $30,000. We've heard in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, even into the millions of dollars. There's been a lot talked about that. When that does convert to a grant, as best as the crystal ball can tell us, and the IRS and state treasury in Michigan, sometimes they wait till the last second to tell you they're going to change or they're going to give some additional guidance. In fact, coming up this week, Bob and I were on pins and needles trying to figure out what state treasury is going to do about sales tax. I will tell you, state treasury has been absolutely incredible with trying to communicate as best as they could. Their public information officer has been great. So different than IRS, which took a little bit longer to sometimes respond. State treasury has been great in general. So from what we tell, don't think there's going to be a taxable event for that conversion from a loan to a grant.
So I have a quick question for Stuart. This may be Stuart or Bob or even Bobby or Lawrence, actually. We've all heard the banks are doing their best, the SBA, the government, and people are small businesses are struggling, people are struggling. Yet the credit bureaus, what are they doing? Does anybody know? Does anybody have any comment on how can Experian, how can Equifax, how could TransUnion still keep monitoring and decreasing your credit rating based on the situation? Does anybody have any input on that?
I have
Crickets.
heard that there are. I have heard there is going to be substantial defaults, not only in mortgages but also in car loans and what have you, and that normally does nick up your credit report. But no, I have not heard anything from those three credit reporting bureaus sort of run the nation as to how they're going to treat those as far as your credit score goes.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to find out because, you could have been at an 800 coming into this and all of a sudden, beyond your own control, you can't pay anything and now you're getting penalized. And I think that needs to be looked at for
Kevin?
Yeah.
Kevin, I would look back to 2008 and 2009 when you had a significant amount of bankruptcies, you had a significant amount of failed payments. And really, I think Bob and Stuart can answer this best. But my understanding is that those failures that people had to deal with were not used against them in a credit.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So yes, obviously there's no correlation whatsoever. But I do want to bring up a point before we end the show. As I had mentioned last week, I'm putting together a coalition of national associations and with some lobbyists and insurance companies in Washington to attempt to deal with this business interruption problem. I'll say problem, but I think it's just a, you know, and it is starting to pick up some traction. So if in fact, and Bob, I know there's no answer to this, so I'm not going to ask you. No. But it seems to me that if this creates, if it goes in the direction that we are pushing it, then there will be some funds for businesses to collect a portion of their loss of income. How will that be, you know, again, from a bankruptcy standpoint, who knows how long that's going to take? How do you think a person in a business deals with that in terms of they can't survive without it, and they probably, you know, they go out of business, and then they get these funds that come in. I mean, I can just, to me, it's just a big open hole. So what's your thoughts? Lawrence, Bob, Stuart, what's your thoughts on what do you do with that money?
I'll try and go first with that. I think there's so many unknowns in that scenario. Whether it's, we can ask 50 people in the accounting world, in the legal bankruptcy world. It's a matter of, if the money comes in, it probably is not going to be a taxable event. If the money goes bad, a lot of these loans, by the way, are not being personally guaranteed. There's no PGs, as it's called. There's no personal guarantees on these. So you're going to probably have people who aren't going to care as much about their personal credit. And I think one of the things we should do, by the way, and I will try and reach out, is we should see if we can get someone from the credit reporting bureaus to come on and talk about that. I don't know that Stuart has an answer. I don't know that Bob Doyle, quite frankly, I don't know, but these are really good topics. And the real deal, we're trying to get to the bottom of them. And the real deal, maybe there isn't any answers yet to some of these questions. No one knows. Talking about no one knows, as we try and wrap it up here in a little bit, I want to get back to the chief and maybe a little bit of Justin here. We talked about the protective coverings, whether it's the mask, whether it's wearing the bandana, whether it's something. And Chief, in your years of being in law enforcement, have you ever had to deal with a bank robbery?
Yes, unfortunately, I've been involved in a handful of them.
Okay, so just out of curiosity, right, because we all watch movies, are the bank robbers coming in with a covered face? They're covering their face with a mask or a bandana, typically, right?
Yeah, that's definitely one of the ways they try to cover or conceal their face. Yes.
All right. So you just told us a little while ago that Home Depot says you can't come into my place unless you have a face covering on. But now, what if you're the bank? I'll tell you, if I own the bank, I get it. I got to balance that. But can you imagine now? You're going to have people walking into those banks completely with their faces covered, right? They're going to have those masks on. I wonder how that's going to go down. How are you going to look at, please God, there's no robberies, and 100 times we pray that everything is going to be okay and that you don't have to even think about this. But it's something to think about, right? Home Depot's, you want it on. In my business, probably we're going to want the masks on, and we don't know what that policy is going to look like. And I think you're going to have a lot of people, in my opinion, that say the remote concept, working remote, is great. Kevin's business may really see a big boom. He's the king. Look, at his company's called MobileIt. So he's a mobile guy for internet technology. That's what he does. So any thoughts on there about walking into, there's a bank in Lathrup Village, right?
There's 3 different banks, but yes, it's going to be a learning experience as we go forward. I don't think we can really answer that, but right now it's something we've got to start looking at, and how are we going to deal with this? How are the banks going to, we don't know how they're going to deal with it. So we're kind of up in the air right now on how we move forward. If normally, if I was driving by and somebody was coming out of a bank with a mask, I'd be flipping around and checking it out. Well, that's not going to be the case anymore. So, we really have to look at, how are we going to deal with this situation going forward? And I unfortunately, I don't have any answers. I can't answer that question.
I think if you think about this, Lawrence, just real quick, remember, it's a really important thing for everyone to remember. A mask is, if you're not wearing a mask, you're being selfish. You're being selfish because you're just using a mask to protect others, period, okay? And so let's say in my office, I don't care if you come in with a brown bag over your face with the 2 holes, just like you're a Lions fan, right?
The unknown comic.
Because nobody is coming in to my office to get the cash out of my register. I don't have a register, right? So every institution, every business, every store has to come up with their own policies. If I'm a bank owner or if I'm the CEO of a bank, I'm going to say, hey, you know what? I want to have you have a mask on, but there's not going to be more than one person in my lobby at a time. You're going to stand outside and wait. Everyone's got to have their own policies, and I think if we do that and we leave it up to the individual operations, we will succeed. Because every store, every business is going to be different.
That's true. I will give you one observation. Lawrence, I think if somebody comes in with a mask over their face with eyes, with holes cut out for their eyes, and in the summertime they're wearing a trench coat, I would stop that person.
I agree with that.
You're hired.
That seems a little suspicious. Well, I got a quick question for Dr. Trivax down there for me. So what is, and I've been having this, not argument, but debate with my family, what is the real deal on when if you go to the store or if you get a package, spraying it down, wipe, spraying the box or taking out and washing the vegetables, or is there anything we should be extra careful of, during this time when we go to the store, when we pick up packages and things like that?
I think it's a great question.
I get asked that question all the time. Here's the deal with this virus. It is nasty, okay? As you guys heard, I had it. I was sick. I most definitely got it when I was in the hospital, taking care of these sick patients. I probably had one moment where I wasn't taking off my protective equipment appropriately, and I had a lapse in my responsible doctoring skills, and I just touched my face, and I'm pretty sure that's when I had it. But remember, this is a respiratory virus. It's a respiratory virus, meaning you're not going to get it, most likely, if you bring in a package from Amazon of clothes for your kid. It doesn't work that way. Now, you go to the grocery store, you buy this, you buy that. You have more of a chance of getting COVID while you're in the store and someone next to you coughs or, does something and they're not wearing a mask. That's when you're at risk. So yes, we're wiping down surfaces because we know that the COVID virus can, remain active on a surface for up to 72 hours, whatever the case is. Remember, this is a respiratory virus. You're not going to get it from it going from China. There was a device that you bought from China. It went through Amazon. Now it's on your porch. You have to wipe it down. That's just after 72 hours. It's been in a truck for 72 hours. By staying on your porch, it's not going to do anything different. So I don't want to downplay this and say you shouldn't have that high sense of awareness. On the flip side, the chance of you getting this from going to the grocery store and picking up some vegetables and not wiping it down is extremely low.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
All right, guys. Well, listen, I want to say thank you again to everyone, but especially to the guests that we had on today. Bob Doyle, President of Michigan Association of CPAs. Great.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for, by the way, just on a personal level, thanks for bouncing ideas back and forth and trying to keep us in the loop. And I hope I've kept you in the loop on certain things and given you real time info. So really appreciate that. And so your 19,000 or 20,000 members. And boy, congrats by the way on the new job. What an entry you had there.
Yeah.
It was incredible. Well, thanks, and again to everyone out there that's really uses you guys as a resource for the Association of CPAs and the lobbying efforts that you're doing to try and do the right thing. That's the overwhelming theme, I think. What's the common sense? What makes most sense? And what's the real deal? And Scott, to you, the chief. Listen, once again, thanks for all you guys are doing to keep us safe, to keep us healthy, to assist in any way you can, to protect and serve, as the saying goes. Really, to law enforcement out there, first responders, you guys are really rocking and rolling, and we really appreciate the efforts of certainly your department, but quite frankly, to all of those in law enforcement across the country. What you're doing in Lathrup Village, which, by the way, I never figured it out. You said the city of Lathrup Village. Is it a village or is it a city? Which one is it, right?
It's actually a city.
Right, exactly. And I happen to be there. But thank you to what you're doing. But what you're doing here in Michigan, and we're talking about, can we go on the canoe versus the pontoon boats, and can we go to the park, and can we do this, and can we do that? Like, I'd love to be able to go back to, I need to ask my wife, can I go here? Can I do this? Can I buy this? Can I not buy this? I think we would all like to get back to whatever that normal is. And I want to give a little bit of a sneak peek, not 100% sure because we don't talk about politics, but we may have a politician on this week, which is going to be Wednesday. So stay tuned for that. And Chief, if we need to have you back on, we appreciate if you can squeeze us in. And Bob, thanks for being on standby.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks to all
for having me. I appreciate it, guys.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
IT work, it's incredible. Thank you for all you're doing. And I also want to talk to Stuart and say a goodbye, at least for this show. Stuart, you got a lot of you-know-what coming your way. You got I think you can probably say shit. You got a lot of shit coming your way.
You can say that, yeah.
Unfortunately. But again, you're there to tell people bankruptcy isn't always going to be that end game. There's going to be other options that are out there, right?
Absolutely. We're going to be discussing that throughout these podcasts.
And Justin, as the doctor in the house, listen, if anyone didn't hear it and you've not talked about it, although it's talked about all around town, that Dr. Justin Trivax had the coronavirus and he tested positive, he's back in action. Thank you for what you're doing, taking care of the patients. Your entire family are all doctors, so the Trivax, big shout out to the Trivax family in general. And guys, once again, thanks for making this the real deal. Thanks for talking to everyone. It's really been an informative session once again, so enjoy your evenings, enjoy your loved ones, and stay safe and be healthy. And thanks for tuning in to the Corona Resource Team, The Real Deal. Stay tuned. Check us out online. Our YouTube site has had a lot. We've been doing our social media thing. By the way, before I forget, I want to say a big thank you to Kevin's son. Kevin's son, he's a teenager. I will tell you, he has really been helping out with these editing skills. Yeah. Tremendous shout out to your son, Elon. It's really incredible. And I just want to say thanks to my kids too that are helping out. But everyone, great effort on everyone's part. We're all tossing around ideas. We text at all hours of the night. It's great. So guys, thanks. Stay tuned till next time. Everyone be safe.
Oh, wait, Lawrence, wait.
Yes, sir.
What about all the great stuff that your sons are doing for the heroes, the meals at the hospitals, huh? That's
you know what?
Awesome. You got to say a little something about that.
All right, 30 seconds on that one. Heroes at hospitals. My two sons, 14 and 21, they created this. You hear a lot about it on the news about people putting together these meals and how we can take care of the hospital staff. But you don't hear a lot about kids doing it. And they've raised, I think they're over $23,000, and they'll coordinate how to make that work, and it's really great. They've been servicing hospitals and workers, and over the past few weeks, I'm really proud of the boys. So, Kevin, thanks for bringing that one up.
Yeah, it's amazing. I was so touched when I saw that, and it's great. You boys are great, and what they're doing is awesome. So, kudos to them and you.
Yeah. All right. Guys, thanks. We'll talk to you next time. It was incredible. Chief, thanks again. Bob Doyle in the house. Appreciate it, guys.
Thanks,
You guys be safe and healthy.